The quantum resonance array of the Zarkeli Deep Space Monitoring Station hummed with an unusual frequency. Chief Navigator Krell's secondary sensory cluster twitched involuntarily as the anomalous reading scrolled across the holographic display. Something was different. Something was wrong. Space in this sector had been predictably mundane for centuries. The Zarkeli Confederation controlled these star lanes with an efficiency that bordered on mathematical perfection. Their sensor networks were so advanced that nothing, absolutely nothing, could slip past their detection grid without being immediately cataloged, analyzed, and understood. Yet here it was, a vessel that seemed to defy every known principle of stellar navigation. The initial sensor ping came as a whisper, almost imperceptible. Most junior navigators would have dismissed it as a quantum flutter, a momentary glitch in the complex web of sensors that surrounded their territory. But Krell was not most navigators. With over 3 standard cycles of deep space reconnaissance experience, he knew the difference between a sensor error and something truly extraordinary. "Magnify Sector 7 Gamma," he commanded, his voice a low resonant pulse that activated the station's advanced imaging systems. The holographic display expanded, revealing a sight that would be discussed in Zarkeli strategic circles for generations to come. A single vessel materialized against the infinite black, its profile unlike anything in their comprehensive galactic database, where Zarkeli ships were sleek, organic constructs that mimicked the flowing biomechanical designs of their civilization. This ship looked like it had been assembled from pure determination and spare parts. Its hull was a canvas of survival. Massive repair patches told stories of encounters that would have destroyed lesser vessels. Micro-armor plating was welded in seemingly random patterns, each section a testament to quick thinking and even quicker engineering. The ship's exterior wasn't just damage. It was decorated with the scars of countless journeys. Krell's junior analysis team began their standard threat assessment protocol. Spectral analysis, material composition scans, energy signature readings. Each report came back more confusing than the last. The ship's composition defied standard categorization. Metals that shouldn't be able to withstand deep space radiation were somehow integrated into its structure. Adaptive alloys shifted and realigned, even as the sensors tried to map them. "Impossible," muttered Varna, the youngest of the sensor technicians. Her tentacle-like appendages trembled as she recalibrated the sensors multiple times. "The whole composition is changing. It's adapting in real time to our scanning frequencies." Krell's experience told him this was more than just a ship. It was a living system, a complex organism that seemed to breathe and think with an intelligence that transcended traditional technological understanding. The vessel's approach was equally perplexing. It didn't follow any known faster-than-light travel protocols. There were no standard quantum wake signatures, no gravitational distortions typical of advanced propulsion systems. It simply appeared, as if the fabric of space itself had momentarily folded and deposited this impossible machine into their jurisdiction. Communication protocols demanded an immediate response. Standard Zarkeli procedure dictated a multi-layered approach. First, a passive identification request, then an increasingly aggressive series of demands and warnings. But something about this ship made Krell hesitate. Its very existence challenged everything the Zarkeli thought they knew about interstellar travel, about technological advancement, about the hierarchy of spacefaring civilizations. This was no ordinary encounter. This was a moment that would redefine everything. The ship continued its approach, seemingly unaware, or perhaps unconcerned, that it had just entered the most heavily monitored section of Zarkeli space. Its movements were deliberate, calm, almost casual. And that, more than anything else, terrified Krell. The communication chamber of the Zarkeli monitoring station thrummed with nervous energy. Chief Navigator Krell's communication specialist, Sarlin, began transmitting the standard first contact protocol, a series of cascading frequency modulations designed to establish dominance and demand immediate compliance. To the Zarkeli, communication was never just about exchanging information. It was a carefully choreographed dance of power, a ritual that clearly established the pecking order of interstellar interactions. Their transmissions were mathematical symphonies of intimidation, encoded with layers of cultural and technological superiority. The first transmission went out, a complex series of quantum-encrypted signals that typically reduced lesser species to trembling submission. It was a message that simultaneously demanded identification, asserted territorial rights, and implied catastrophic consequences for non-compliance. Silence. Zarlin recalibrated the communication arrays, her multi-jointed appendages moving with practiced precision. She increased the transmission strength, adding additional layers of linguistic complexity that would make most species' communication systems collapse under the sheer computational weight. Still silence. "They're either technologically primitive or monumentally arrogant," muttered Varna, the junior sensor technician whose earlier observations about the ship's unusual hull had already set the command crew on edge. Krell's sensory clusters twitched, the biological equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Something was fundamentally wrong with this encounter. Then, without warning, a response crackled through the communication systems. It was so simple, so utterly devoid of the expected panic or submission, that it momentarily paralyzed the entire command crew. "This is the U.S. improvisation. We're passing through. Please do not interfere." The message was transmitted in perfect Zarkali linguistic protocols, with an accent so precise it bordered on mockery. No plea, no fear, just a statement of absolute fact. Zarlin's communication analysis systems went into overdrive. The linguistic patterns were perfect, too perfect. Each grammatical nuance, each tonal modulation was exactly correct, as if someone had studied Zarkali communication for decades and then decided to use it with the casual indifference of someone asking for directions. "Respond with Intercept Protocol Gamma," Krell commanded, his voice a low resonant pulse that vibrated through the station's communication systems. Protocol Gamma was not a request. It was a declaration of imminent forced compliance. For thousands of stellar cycles, no species had ever refused a Zarkali Gamma protocol. It was designed to be simultaneously a communication and a threat, a quantum-encrypted message that would disable most technological systems while demanding absolute submission. Zarlin's fingers, if they could be called fingers, danced across the communication console. Quantum entanglement fields began to build, creating a communication network that could theoretically disable any receiving system within a parsec's radius. The response came almost before the transmission completed. Negative. Proceeding on current trajectory. The casual nature of the response was a psychological blow more devastating than any weapon. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't aggression. It was pure, unadulterated indifference. Krell felt something he had not experienced in his entire career. Uncertainty. The human ship, this U.S. improvisation, was treating the most powerful fleet in the known galaxy like a minor inconvenience. Its very approach suggested a level of confidence that bordered on the incomprehensible. "They're not asking permission," Varna whispered, her voice a mixture of terror and fascination. "They're informing us of their intent." And indeed, the ship continued its trajectory. No evasive maneuvers, no defensive posturing, just a steady, deliberate approach that suggested complete and total confidence in its ability to handle whatever the Zarkali might attempt. The first contact was going nothing like anyone had expected. The first volley came without warning. 12 Zarkali interceptor squadrons launched simultaneously, their quantum-phased plasma cannons charging with enough energy to obliterate small moons. Each ship was a marvel of biomechanical engineering, designed to move as one, a living network of destruction that had crushed countless civilizations. Their attack pattern was mathematically perfect, a cascading wave of energy and matter that should have been impossible to dodge. The squadrons moved with a synchronicity that was almost organic, their weapon systems linked through a neural network that anticipated and corrected every potential variable. The U.S. improvisation did something no one expected. It danced. The term seemed ridiculous when applied to a massive battleship, but there was no other way to describe the vessel's movement. Where a traditional ship would have attempted to evade or shield, this human vessel moved with a fluidity that defied everything the Zarkeli understood about space combat. Plasma bolts that should have struck with devastating precision passed through empty space. The human ship didn't just dodge, it predicted. Each movement was a calculated response that suggested the vessel was thinking, analyzing, learning with every millisecond of the encounter. Impossible, breathed tactical coordinator Zinra, her sensory clusters vibrating with a mixture of terror and fascination. The ship's movements weren't just evasive, they were purposeful. Each dodge brought the U.S. improvisation closer to the attacking squadrons, gathering data with every near miss. The ship's hull began to shift subtly. Patches that looked like random repair work revealed themselves as adaptive camouflage. Weapon systems that had been hidden now became partially visible, not as a threat, but as a data-gathering mechanism. The human vessel was turning the Zarkeli's attack into an information-gathering exercise. 12 squadrons became 11. Then 10, not through destruction, but through systematic elimination. Ships found themselves inexplicably disabled, not destroyed, but rendered completely inoperable. Communication systems went dark. Propulsion networks collapsed. It was as if the very essence of their technological superiority was being dismantled by an intelligence they couldn't comprehend. Commander Krellna watched in growing horror. The tactical displays showed something unprecedented. The human ship wasn't just defending itself, it was teaching. Each evasive maneuver came with a precise computational analysis that was being broadcast on open channels. The Zarkeli were watching their own tactical superiority being dissected in real time. "They're learning our attack patterns faster than we can change them," muttered Zinra, her voice a mixture of professional analysis and raw terror. The U.S. improvisation moved through the Zarkeli fleet like a phantom. No weapon seemed capable of touching it. No tactical approach proved effective. What should have been a moment of total annihilation had transformed into a clinical demonstration of technological and strategic superiority. Most terrifying was the complete lack of aggression from the human vessel. This wasn't a battle, it was a lesson. A communication channel opened. The same calm voice from earlier cut through the chaos of battle. "Attempt number 73 unsuccessful. Would you like to discuss an alternative approach?" The message was a psychological dagger. Not a threat, not a boast, just a simple observation, as if the systematic dismantling of the most powerful fleet in the known galaxy was nothing more than a minor academic exercise. Zinra's hands froze over the tactical controls. In that moment, the Zarkeli understood something that would change everything. They were no longer the most advanced species in the galaxy. Humanity had arrived. The silence that followed the battle was more terrifying than the combat itself. Admiral Krellna stared at the tactical displays, his sensory clusters struggling to process what had just occurred. The U.S. improvisation hung in space, seemingly uninterested in the disabled Zarkeli fleet surrounding it. Data streams began to flood the monitoring systems. It wasn't just that the human ship had survived. It was actively analyzing every single aspect of the encounter. Weapon signatures, fleet formations, communication protocols, even the subtle quantum fluctuations of the Zarkeli ship's energy systems were being cataloged with a precision that bordered on the impossible. "It's learning," whispered Zinra, her voice a mixture of professional fascination and primal fear. "Each interaction is becoming part of its operational matrix." The ship's computational analysis began to reveal layers of complexity that shattered everything the Zarkeli understood about technological warfare. Where their own systems required massive computational networks and neural interfaces, the human vessel seemed to process information through some form of adaptive intelligence that defied traditional understanding. Most disturbing was the communication that followed. A calm, almost conversational voice cut through the communication systems. "Attempt number 73 unsuccessful. Would you like to discuss an alternative approach?" The message was a psychological masterpiece. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a boast. It was a simple observation, as if the systematic dismantling of the most powerful fleet in the known galaxy was nothing more than a minor academic exercise. Junior tactician Varna began compiling the initial analysis. The numbers were impossible. The human ship had not just defended itself, it had transformed the entire encounter into a learning opportunity. Each weapon discharge, each evasive maneuver, each quantum-level interaction had been instantaneously analyzed and integrated into its operational matrix. The ship's hull told a story of its own. What initially appeared to be random repair patches were actually adaptive camouflage systems. Microstructural changes occurred in real time, reconfiguring the vessel's exterior to maximize defensive capabilities. Materials that should have been static were now dynamic, breathing, thinking. Admiral Krellner realized they were facing something entirely new. This wasn't just a technologically advanced vessel. This was a living system that viewed conflict as a problem to be solved, not a battle to be won. Communication protocols suggested something even more terrifying. The ship wasn't just defending itself, it was waiting. Each moment of interaction was an opportunity to gather more information, to understand, to prepare. "We're being studied," Krellna muttered, a realization that sent tremors through the entire command structure. The U.S. improvisation continued its calm approach. No aggressive movements. No additional weapon discharges. Just a steady, deliberate trajectory that suggested complete confidence in its ability to handle any potential threat. Varna's computational analysis revealed something that would become legendary in Zarkili strategic circles. The human ship had not just defended against 73 separate attack vectors. It had predicted and prepared countermeasures for potential future attacks that hadn't even been conceived yet. This was more than a ship. This was an intelligence that saw conflict as a complex, multidimensional problem to be solved with patience, adaptability, and an almost casual brilliance. The Zarkili were no longer the most advanced species in the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and they had arrived with a methodology that would redefine everything known about technological warfare, strategic interaction, and the very nature of intelligence itself. In that moment of realization, fear transformed into something more profound: respect. The analysis teams worked frantically. Their neural interfaces pushed to the absolute limits of computational capacity. What they discovered about the human battleship U.S. improvisation would rewrite everything the Zarkili thought they knew about technological advancement. Dr. Klinvar, the Confederation's most renowned xenotechnological expert, stood trembling before a holographic reconstruction of the ship. Each layer of analysis peeled back another impossible revelation. The hull wasn't just a protective covering. It was a living, breathing computational system that defied every known principle of materials science. "Look here," she commanded her team, pointing to a section of adaptive plating. What appeared to be a simple repair patch was actually a complex network of nanomolecular structures that could reconfigure themselves instantaneously. Each molecular bond could restructure, redistribute energy, and adapt to incoming threats in milliseconds. The ship's computer systems were equally mind-breaking. Traditional Zarkili technology relied on massive neural networks and quantum computational matrices. The human vessel demonstrated something entirely different, a hybrid intelligence that seemed to blur the lines between biological adaptation and technological processing. Varna, the junior tactician who had first noticed the ship's unusual characteristics, discovered something that would haunt the Zarkili leadership for generations. The ship's computational systems weren't just responsive, they were predictive. Each interaction, each scan, each moment of contact was instantly analyzed, cataloged, and used to build increasingly sophisticated response models. "It's learning," Dr. Klinvar whispered, her voice a mixture of terror and professional fascination. "Not just recording data, but actually learning, evolving." The adaptive technologies went far beyond simple defensive mechanisms. Those seemingly random hull patches were actually advanced camouflage systems that could alter their molecular structure to blend with surrounding space, absorb energy, or redirect incoming attacks. What the Tsar Cully had initially dismissed as crude repairs were actually the most advanced technological systems they had ever encountered. Communication protocols revealed an equally terrifying insight. The ship's language processing systems could analyze and adapt to communication frequencies faster than the Tsar Cully could change them. Each transmission was not just received, it was dissected, understood, and prepared for potential response before the transmission had even completed. Energy management was another realm of impossible technology. Traditional spacefaring civilizations maintained complex energy distribution networks. The U.S. improvisation demonstrated a quantum-level energy management system that could redistribute power, adapt shield frequencies, and optimize computational resources in ways that seemed to defy the fundamental laws of physics. "We're not looking at a ship," Dr. Klinvar told the Emergency Council. "We're looking at a living system that happens to travel through space." The ship's very existence challenged fundamental Tsar Cully understanding of technological development. Where their civilization saw technology as a tool to be controlled, the humans appeared to have created something that was both tool and living intelligence. Computational analysis of the encounter revealed layers of complexity that went beyond mere technological superiority. The U.S. improvisation had transformed the entire military engagement into a data-gathering exercise. Each weapon discharge, each evasive maneuver, each quantum-level interaction had been instantaneously analyzed and integrated into its operational matrix. Most disturbing was the ship's apparent lack of aggression. This wasn't a vessel designed for destruction. It was a mobile research platform that viewed conflict as a problem to be solved, not a battle to be won. As the analysis continued, the Tsar Cully leadership began to understand a terrifying truth. The human battleship wasn't just advanced. It represented an entirely new paradigm of technological existence, a living, thinking system that could adapt, learn, and respond with a level of intelligence that transcended traditional technological boundaries. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The broadcast began without warning, a cascade of data so intricate, so precisely targeted that it froze every communication system in the Tsar Cully command network. Information poured forth, not as a weapon, but as a surgical revelation. Military deployment strategies that the Tsar Cully believed were their most closely guarded secrets lay exposed. Trade route vulnerabilities, political tensions between different sectors of their civilization, classified communication protocols, all laid bare with a precision that suggested years of meticulous observation. Admiral Krelnow watched in horror as the U.S. improvisation transformed from a mere vessel into something far more dangerous. This was not an attack. This was a complete deconstruction of Tsar Cully operational security. Each data stream came with contextual analysis that was almost conversational in its delivery. Weaknesses weren't just exposed, they were explained. Potential diplomatic solutions were suggested with a clinical detachment that suggested the humans viewed the Tsar Cully's internal complexities as nothing more than an interesting intellectual puzzle. The communication systems of the massive space station began to fragment, not through violent disruption, but through a systematic unraveling that suggested complete comprehension of their most complex security systems. "We've been studying your civilization for considerable time," the calm voice announced. "Perhaps we can discuss some observations." It was not a threat, not an invasion declaration, just a simple invitation to dialogue, delivered with the same casual indifference the ship had shown during its initial approach. Junior Tactician Varna discovered something that would become legendary in Tsar Cully intelligence circles. The data broadcast wasn't just a simple information dump. Each piece of information was carefully curated, designed to demonstrate not just the depth of human intelligence gathering, but also to provide a path toward potential cooperation. Political fractures that the Tsar Cully believed were hidden were suddenly illuminated, not with malicious intent, but with a clinical precision that suggested the humans saw these internal conflicts as solvable problems. The ship's computational systems demonstrated a level of contextual understanding that went beyond mere data collection. Complex diplomatic tensions were analyzed with a nuance that suggested deep cultural intelligence. Each revelation came with potential resolution strategies, diplomatic alternatives, economic opportunities. Dr. Klinvar, watching the data stream, realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. The U.S. improvisation wasn't just gathering information. It was offering a comprehensive analysis of Zarkeli civilization, complete with potential paths forward. Trade route vulnerabilities were accompanied by suggested economic restructuring that could minimize potential conflicts. Military deployment strategies were analyzed with recommendations that could reduce potential confrontations while maintaining strategic objectives. The most terrifying aspect was the complete lack of aggression. This was not an invasion. This was not a threat. This was an invitation to a different kind of interaction, one based on mutual understanding and potential cooperation. Communication protocols suggested something even more profound. The humans were demonstrating that they understood the Zarkeli better than the Zarkeli understood themselves. "We've observed your civilization's potential," the calm voice continued. "We believe there are multiple paths forward that could be mutually beneficial." As the data continued to flow, the Zarkeli leadership found themselves in a position they had never experienced. They were being offered not just information, but a comprehensive roadmap to potential improvement. The U.S. improvisation hung in space, a living testament to a form of intelligence that transcended traditional concepts of warfare, diplomacy, and technological interaction. Humanity had arrived, and they were offering a conversation. The diplomatic chamber was unlike anything in Zarkeli history. Where previous first contact scenarios had been exercises in dominance, this meeting represented something entirely new. The human delegation arrived not with military pomp, but with a delegation that seemed more like a research team. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, lead diplomatic liaison, carried herself with a calm intensity that immediately set the Zarkeli leadership on edge. She wore no formal military attire, instead dressed in a simple adaptive environment suit that seemed to subtly change color and texture based on the surrounding conditions. "We're here to understand," she began, her universal translator rendering her words with perfect linguistic and cultural nuance. "Not to conquer, not to negotiate from a position of superiority, but to explore potential mutual benefits." The U.S. improvisation remained visible through the chamber's massive transparent panels, a constant reminder of the technological capabilities that had brought them to this moment. Its very presence spoke more eloquently than any diplomatic speech could. Admiral Krelna found himself in an unprecedented position. The humans were treating the Zarkeli not as a conquered civilization, but as potential partners. Each discussion point came with comprehensive data analysis, potential collaborative opportunities, and a level of respect that defied everything the Zarkeli understood about interstellar interactions. Scientific exchanges became the initial bridge. The humans brought not demands, but proposals for joint research initiatives. Technological challenges that had stymied Zarkeli researchers for generations were approached with a collaborative mindset that suggested humanity saw knowledge as a shared resource. Dr. Klinvar, the xenotechnological expert, discovered something remarkable. The human approach to technological development was fundamentally different from the Zarkeli. Where the Zarkeli saw technology as a tool of control and dominance, the humans viewed it as a means of solving complex problems and understanding the universe. Cultural exchanges revealed even more profound differences. The human delegation brought researchers, artists, philosophers, not just military strategists. They were interested in understanding Zarkeli culture at its most fundamental level. "Your civilization has solved problems we find fascinating," Dr. Rodriguez explained during one session. "Your approach to collective decision-making, your unique biological adaptation mechanisms, these are not just scientific curiosities. They're potential solutions to challenges we've been exploring for generations." The U.S. improvisation became more than a ship. It transformed into a symbol of a new kind of interstellar interaction. Its adaptive technologies were offered as potential collaborative research platforms, not weapons to be feared. Economic proposals followed a similar pattern. The humans didn't seek resource extraction or territorial expansion. They proposed complex trade models that would benefit both civilizations, models that considered long-term ecological and social impacts. Junior tactician Varna, now serving as a cultural liaison, found herself at the center of this extraordinary transformation. The humans were genuinely interested in understanding, in finding common ground, in viewing the universe as a complex system of potential cooperation. Diplomatic sessions became exchanges of knowledge. Military strategists discussed conflict resolution strategies. Researchers shared technological insights. Artists explored cultural expression. The most profound moment came when Dr. Rodriguez shared a simple statement that would become legendary in both civilizations. "We're not here to change you. We're here to learn with you." The U.S. improvisation remained a constant presence, a living reminder of the technological capabilities that had brought them together, but also a symbol of a new approach to interstellar interaction. Humanity had arrived, and they were offering partnership. 5 stellar cycles after the initial encounter, the galaxy had transformed. The U.S. improvisation became more than a ship. It became a legend, a symbol of humanity's approach to interstellar exploration that would be studied for generations. Its adaptive technologies had sparked a revolution in scientific understanding that went far beyond mere technological advancement. Joint research stations now orbited multiple star systems. The Zarkali and human collaborative efforts had solved challenges that had seemed insurmountable mere cycles before. Technological barriers dissolved as 2 fundamentally different civilizations discovered the power of collaborative intelligence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now the primary liaison between human and Zarkali research initiatives, stood on the observation deck of the newest joint research platform. The station itself was a testament to their collaborative approach, a design that blended human modularity with Zarkali organic architectural principles. "We're not just exploring space," she would often say. "We're exploring the nature of intelligence itself." The original U.S. improvisation had become a mobile research center, constantly moving between collaborative zones. Its adaptive technologies had been shared, not as a weapon, but as a platform for mutual discovery. Each modification, each technological breakthrough became a shared resource. Admiral Krelna, who had once prepared to destroy the human vessel, now led joint strategic research initiatives. The military mindset that had defined Zarkali civilization for generations was slowly transforming. Conflict resolution became a complex art of understanding, not a simple equation of force. Junior tactician Varna had become a key figure in cross-cultural communication. Her unique perspective, born from that first extraordinary encounter, helped bridge gaps that seemed insurmountable during the initial contact. The technological exchanges went far beyond simple resource sharing. Humanity's approach to adaptive intelligence found perfect complementarity with Zarkali biological adaptation technologies. Medical breakthroughs emerged from collaborative research that could potentially extend lifespans, cure previously untreatable conditions, and unlock deeper understanding of biological systems. Economic models transformed. Where previous interstellar interactions had been defined by resource extraction and territorial expansion, the human-Zarkali collaboration introduced complex symbiotic economic strategies. Each collaborative initiative considered long-term ecological, social, and technological impacts. The U.S. improvisation remained a constant reminder of how everything began. Its original hull, now partially preserved in a joint research museum, told a story of unexpected first contact. The adaptive technologies that had once seemed like an impossible threat were now standard research platforms used across multiple scientific disciplines. "We didn't conquer," Dr. Rodriguez would explain to young researchers. "We communicated. We listened. We learned." Zarkali philosophers began developing entirely new schools of thought inspired by the human approach. The concept of intelligence itself was being reimagined, no longer a tool of domination, but a complex system of mutual understanding and collaborative problem-solving. The original encounter had changed everything. Not through force, not through technological superiority, but through a fundamental approach that saw potential where others saw conflict. Humanity had arrived, and they had brought something far more powerful than weapons. They had brought understanding.